Hi folks, it's just before Christmas weekend and I wanted to touch base with you and add my video addendum to the Week 6 forum on evolving terrorist tactics. As you know, we've discussed quite a few of those. Everything from Mumbai-style commando raids to this recent truck attack at the Christmas market in Berlin. So there are all sorts of different attack scenarios. Of course, we saw the Paris attack, the Brussels attack, the Turkey airport, the attack at the airport in Turkey. We have seen in combat zones IEDs, VBIEDs, and explosively formed penetrators, which were developed by the Iranians, and then they taught that to the Iraqi insurgents. So we've seen that as well. We've seen a number of cyber attacks which could be terrorist related. We've seen all sorts of things, and so there is really no limit to what can be done as far as attacking civilized societies. They're very vulnerable in many ways because of the freedoms that we enjoy. So what can we expect to see in the future? Well, we can certainly expect to see more suicide bombings, more attacks by truck like we saw in Berlin, and the attack during the summer in France. We can expect to see all the different types of attack scenarios we've seen to date carried out again, even down to, say, like the pressure cooker bombs that we saw in the Boston Marathon bombing. These things are not going to stop. One of the things that we can do as Americans to really get ourselves prepared for that sort of thing is to think critically about these attacks, where they might occur, talk to our families about them, and determine some course of actions should we be caught up in something like this. This is one of the things we need to consider, and I'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end of this presentation. But in the future, I think that we'll see more cyber attacks as groups become more sophisticated in how they can manage those attacks. One of the things that I've been concerned about for years are electromagnetic pulse attacks. What happens in a case like that is, say, Iran could launch an EMP-enhanced nuclear device over central Kansas and detonate it in the upper atmosphere. This would effectively knock out all of the unshielded, or they think it will knock out all of the unshielded systems for electronics in the U.S. and effectively put us back about 100 years. Now, of course, if we could determine who did that, the retaliation, I'm sure, would be quite swift and sure, and that's probably why that sort of attack has not occurred to date. That's one of the things we need to consider. We also need to consider the use of drones in the future. I think in the very near future, drones are going to proliferate to the point where they begin to replace even armed guards on private estates and that sort of thing. Of course, then you become involved in civil law. What happens if a drone engages somebody trying to get on your property, that sort of thing. But I can see that happening in the future. The lone wolf attacks that we've seen will certainly continue. But unless a lone wolf attack is conducted with some sort of nuclear material or biological or chemical material, it's going to be limited in scope. Now, of course, you could make up for that to a degree if you had a huge rash of these attacks at the same time. I don't think that's likely because it would be difficult to coordinate that with that sort of an attack. But those are some of the things that we need to look at as well. I do think that in the future, at some point, there will be some sort of nuclear exchange, or at least some sort of nuclear detonation, because proliferation has really reached a very dangerous point in the world. And so I think that's not a matter of if it will happen, but when it will happen. Of course, we'll still see all the other types of attack scenarios that we've seen. I can envision sleeper agents being activated here at airports and different places to attack facilities and all those sorts of scenarios. So, what can we do to prepare ourselves for that? Now, I don't know if any of you consider yourselves to be preppers. Some of those people are out there quite a ways, but I would say that to be prepared is to be American, and that we all need to think critically, particularly about the first 48 to 72 hours of some sort of an event in our lives, and how we're going to make it through that critical period before some federal assistance might show up on the scene. So I would suggest that you go out to, you can start by going to sites like the U.S. government's ready.gov site and look at, the basic things that you would need for the first 48 to 72 hours, food, water, medical supplies, that sort of thing. And plan for those, and over a period of time, build up that stuff in your inventory. My wife and I both have, excuse me, bug-out bags in our vehicles. We live in rural Missouri, so that's always a good thing to have in your vehicle anyway. But in that case, if I were away from home 30 or 40 minutes, or if she were at her job in Kansas City and some catastrophic event occurred, that would allow her and me, if I was away from home, to successfully negotiate getting home. In our case, being older than many of you, we would probably reside in place where we are until such time as government assistance arrived. I think that would probably be the best thing for us, but not necessarily for everybody. So if anybody has any ideas or anything or any questions about that they want to run by me, please feel free to do so. I'm always happy to respond to that sort of thing. So those are some of the thoughts that I have just to flesh out what we've talked about this week. I hope everybody has a great Christmas and New Year's, and I will see you in the classroom. Thank you.